Hello, this is Heather from Twist My Stitch. Thank you for joining me for this tutorial. Before we get started, you can reach me at twistmystitch@gmail.com or find my social media links in the description below. Please like and subscribe to my channel so you can get notified of future videos. Thank you for watching, and now go twist my stitch. In this tutorial, I'll teach you how to work this twisted knowledge headband. This beginner-friendly pattern is packed full of knitting basics. Pause the video to gather your supplies, including the pattern linked in the description. For a beginner, I recommend that you use a light color yarn so that your stitches are easily visible. Now that you have your knitting supplies, let's get started. For the purposes of this tutorial, I'm a continental knitter and will be working the Cup Cozy. The pattern has headband sizes for child to adult large. We will begin with the long tail of about 20 to 24 inches. Place a slip knot on your needle and cast on 16 stitches. For the long tail cast on, place the working yarn over your index finger and the tail over your thumb using your pinky to tension the yarn. Hold the slip knot in place while you bring the working needle to form a Y with the yarn. Place the working needle under the first loop on your thumb, over the loop on your index finger, and back through the loop on your thumb. Then drop the loop on your thumb as you tension the yarn. I find it helpful to say what I'm doing as I'm doing it. Under, over, through, and tighten. But don't tighten too much because you'll need to work into these loops on the next row. Under, over, through, and tighten. Continue these steps until you have 16 loops on your needle. Pause and rewind the video as many times as you need to get the hang of it. For row 1, you're going to knit until 2 stitches remain, then with yarn in front, slip 2 stitches purlwise. I find it easiest to hold down the working yarn with my middle finger as I work the first knit stitch of the row. The knit stitch is created by inserting your needle from left to right through the stitch. Then yarn over counterclockwise, pull the loop through the stitch, and drop the previous loop off the needle. Again, enter from left to right through the stitch. Yarn over. Sometimes I'll hold the loop with my index finger to help it through the stitch and off. Keep practicing the knit stitch until you find what's comfortable. Occasionally, I'll move the yarn over with my middle finger instead. And don't worry if you see ladders on the cast-on edge like this. It's completely normal. Keep working the knit stitch until you have 2 stitches left on your needle. Pause and rewind the video as many times as you need to get the hang of it. Now that you have just 2 stitches remaining on your needle, with the yarn in front, you're going to slip 2 stitches purlwise. So wyif means with yarn in front, SL2P is slip 2 purlwise. Continue working row 1 until your item measures 4 inches. Because we slipped 2 stitches purlwise at the end of the last row, you'll notice that your working yarn is coming from 2 stitches back. Knitting across those 2 stitches creates an I-cord edge. Spreading out your stitches every now and then helps maintain your tension. Continue working row 1 until your item measures 4 inches. Now that your project measures 4 inches, you're ready to move on to the second half and add row 2 into the mix. Before we do that, I want to mention that repeating row 1 gives your fabric this beautiful texture called the garter stitch. Row 2 is our wrong side row. We'll knit 4 stitches and then we're going to learn the purl stitch. By now you're already familiar and hopefully comfortable with holding your yarn in front and slipping stitches purlwise. Instead of slipping stitches, we're going to work them. The purl stitch starts with holding your yarn in front, entering the stitch from right to left and through. You're going to yarn over counterclockwise and pull through and drop the stitch off of your needle. Again, holding your yarn in front, enter the stitch purlwise from right to left and through. Yarn over counterclockwise. Sometimes I'll use my thumb. Pull that stitch through and off. Again, enter the stitch from right to left, yarn over, pull that stitch through and off your needle. Keep working that purl stitch until there's 4 stitches left on your needle. With 4 stitches remaining, I'll just undo that stitch. Now we're going to knit 2, then with yarn in front, slip 2. I recommend placing a removable stitch marker on your wrong side row as a visual and tactile cue to remember to work row 2. For the remainder of your project, you will alternate between row 1 and row 2. You will notice that there is a visible difference between the first half of your project and the second half. Alternating between knit and purl rows creates the stockinette stitch. As a beginner knitter, it's important to learn how to spot and fix your mistakes. No need to worry, I'll show you how to fix them easily with a crochet hook. First, you'll knit up to your mistake and then slip the column with the mistake off your needle and let it ladder down. This is going to look like a runner in a pair of nylons. We refer to this as laddering down because it looks like rungs on a ladder. Sometimes the fibers get caught on each other and need a little coaxing to come undone. Just stick your crochet hook under the mistake and give it a gentle tug. Next, you'll place your crochet hook behind the first rung in your ladder. Simply hook it and pull it through. Continue to hook each ladder and pull it through until you get to the top. Then place a stitch on your needle, making sure the front leg of the stitch is on the right. If you're anything like me, you knit across your purl row, even though you had that visual and tactile cue to remind you. For this, we'll tink, which is the word knit spelt backwards. This just means to unknit your work, simply reversing all the actions that you just did. Just slip the unworked stitches back to the left needle and tink the rest. You'll take your left needle and place it below the stitch on your right needle, moving it back to the left needle while pulling out the loop. These actions are the same no matter what stitch you're tinking. They'll just look slightly different. Continue across until you have 2 stitches left, and I'll show you how to handle the edge stitches. The stitches on the edge may need to be stretched out or twisted around to get them oriented correctly on the left needle. Now that your project is 8 inches, you're ready to bind off. For the purpose of this tutorial, we'll bind off in a contrasting color. We'll work the bind off row on the right side, which is row 1. Knit the first 2 stitches, then PSO, which means pass stitch over. You'll pick up the first stitch worked and pass it over the second stitch and off the needle. Next, you're going to knit 1 stitch, then pass the stitch over. You're going to continue working knit 1, pass stitch over until 2 stitches remain. With 2 stitches remaining, you're going to knit 2 together, entering from the right to the left through both loops on the needle. Yarn over and pull through. We'll pass the final stitch over and off your needle, then cut the yarn, leaving a 6 to 10 inch tail. Draw the remaining loop through until your tail is free. You have just created the knitted bind off. Let's thread the darning needle. I find it easiest to fold the yarn over the needle and pinch it tight, then slide the yarn off and push it through the eye of the needle. Now we're ready to sew your headband together. You'll bring your cast on and bind off ends together, folding the headband in half with the right sides facing each other. Now stagger the 2 pieces of fabric and fold each end in half to stack them together. Carefully make sure that the corners of the fabric don't get tucked under the folds. With your darning needle, sew the ends together, making sure you go under all the loops of the cast on and bind off edges. Take your time going back and forth through all the layers of the fabric. Once you've sewn your headband together, turn it right side out to make sure you didn't miss a stitch. I want to point out that the only reason you can see the sew line is because I used a contrasting color for demonstration. To finish off your headband, you will need to weave in your ends and block according to the yarn type you used. I tie my cast on and bind off edges in a knot first before threading the darning needle. You can weave in both ends at the same time, but I wanted to show you the difference with stockinette and garter stitch. With the stockinette stitch, you simply pick up the purl bumps in a diagonal direction. I work in a corkscrew motion for about an inch. I typically do this twice, the second time going in the opposite direction. Make sure you stretch out the fabric before cutting off the tail. For demonstration purposes, I'll weave in on the garter stitch side with the contrasting color as well. Typically, you would want to make sure that you weave in both ends. When weaving through garter stitch, I use a zigzag motion going back and forth, picking up the purl bumps for about an inch. The important thing to remember is there's no wrong way to do this. You just want to make sure that your tail is not visible on the other side when you're done. I then go back through once again before cutting off the tail. And that's all there is to the Twisted Knowledge headband. Thank you for watching.